We're going to go kind of in alphabetical order here. Producer Elliot Bowman behind the glass and I have come up with our burning questions for each team.
Uh-oh.
Okay? So the big question for the Arizona Cardinals, which is where we're going to start. Don't we love starting at the bottom, but it's alphabetical order, so they're A, so that's where we got to go. First-time head coach, first-time offensive coordinator, first-time defensive coordinator, a team with a win total of 4.5 and a combined age of those coaches averaging 35 years, which if you're a player, yeah, that's dust, that's ancient. If you're a coach, it is very young. Are the Cardinals, with that, going to be the worst team in the NFL?
Well, and then you didn't throw in that their quarterback, the man who they gave the huge extension to, is probably going to miss most, if not all, of the season. So you add all that in, and Colt McCoy, who has trouble staying healthy, is their starting quarterback. So, yeah, I think they're the front runners for Caleb Williams right now, because as they're trying to piece this together, it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge on and off the field. It's going to be a challenge for them to bring this team together and to have continuity. It's challenging because there's not going to be a lot of confidence because there's going to be no evidence that there's going to be confidence. That's a hard thing for a young coach to handle.
They are 4-1 to be the last winless team, 2-1 to have the fewest wins this season. I mentioned that win total of 4.5. What do you think about this division wins number sitting at 1.5 for the Arizona Cardinals? Can they get 2 wins in the division?
Well, I mean, I think they could beat the Rams at home. Could they beat Seattle at home? Seattle plays them fairly well down there. Could they win a road game? I don't see that. I mean, look, their quarterbacking is so bad, and they're going to be inexperienced in play callers. I mean, you know, one of the things I've written for the guide is the importance of play callers. And we always talk about a play caller making a great, you know, it's obvious to see an offensive play caller calls a play, a touchdown. Oh, what a great play call. But sometimes the play call that's tied to get you out of a bad play is the best call of the game. And nobody knows that, and nobody sees that, and nobody talks about that. So to me, it requires some experience. And then how do you adapt the team during the season? I mean, Jonathan Gannon was not adaptable when he was in Philadelphia with a really good defensive front. If he rushed 4, he got there. He had 60 out of his 70 sacks from rushing 4 guys. I think this is going to be a challenge.
We'll see how things ultimately play out in Arizona. Let's go to the Atlanta Falcons. Desmond Ridder, entering the year as the full-time starter, played 4 games last year, 2-2 in those starts, averaged 177 yards per game, 6.2 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Can he take the step he needs for the Falcons to have success this year? The majority of tickets, we talked about it yesterday when we were looking at the NFC divisions, the majority of tickets are back in the Falcons to win the NFC South.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think if he plays within himself and just doesn't try to be the hero, try to play outside himself, they can improve. Look, we know this. They ran the football effectively last year, and they can control the pace of the game. And they've got playmakers, assuming they could stay healthy. But they've got to be able to throw the football effectively when the game is on the line in the fourth quarter. And that's something that Ritter's going to have to prove he can do. I'm doubtful, based on the 4 games that he played last year. He threw 2 touchdown passes. He held the ball because he didn't want to make a mistake. He's going to have to break through that.
His total yards prop set at 2,600.5, over even money, over -120, under even money. And the Falcons, I still like the Carolina Panthers. We'll get to them a little bit later, but I still like the Panthers there in that division. B is for Buffalo. The Buffalo Bills are the favorite in the AFC East yet again this year. But are they the rightful favorite in a division that's so competitive? That's my burning question for the Bills.
I think they are, Stormy, and I think if they become a more physical football team, where they really focus on trying to knock people off the ball and not rely on Josh Allen to make all the big plays or escape or the Houdini plays, I think they can. You know, it's going to be we're not talking much about this, but Sean McDermott's going to call the defense there. And Leslie Frazier left, and Sean's taken over the defense. Now he's going to manage the game and take over the defense. That's putting more on his plate. Can he handle it? Can he handle it? I think that's a question we've got to ask ourselves.
What do you think about the Bills' Super Bowl window? They're 9-1, third on the odds board behind the 2 teams that played in the Super Bowl last year. But they, with Josh Allen, have yet to even play in one at this point. Been to an AFC championship, twice in the divisional round. They've been knocked out. Is the window getting slimmer and slimmer for Josh Allen and this team, or what do you think?
I don't think it's getting – I mean, as long as the quarterback's young and healthy, it's not going to get slimmer. They were 13 seconds away from going to one. If he just squib kicks it, McDermott called all those defenses on that drive. Everybody blames Leslie Frazier. I think a part of discontent occurred back when McDermott took the calls away from him at that game. And so, they're 13 seconds away. If they manage that game better, they're in the playoff already. I think their window's going to stay open for a while.
The Bills have led the league in offensive points scored per game the last 2 years, second in yards per game. They've also had the second best regular season record since 2019 behind only the Chiefs. But in that span since 2019, the Chiefs have won 2 Super Bowls, made 3 appearances. So the Bills trying to get over that hump themselves. Again, 8-1, 9-1 range for them. B is also for Baltimore. Talking Ravens. Todd Monken steps in as offensive coordinator for Baltimore. Lamar Jackson wants to turn him into a little bit more of a passer. Not that he hasn't had that ability, but to showcase his arm a little bit more, have him pull back the reins in the running game. What will Baltimore's offense really look like under Todd Monken to you?
I think it'll be more play action. It'll be more traditional play action. It won't be a weird running game. It'll be some elements of the Roman run game, but I think it'll be more of a play action pass, a little bit more of a vertical passing game down the field in the middle of the field. I think he's going to incorporate some of those things and try to tie. I think the biggest mistake Roman made as an offensive coordinator was his run game never tied to his pass game. See, this is where Kyle Shanahan has such an advantage. Every run Kyle has a pass off of. Now, that sounds simple, and people say, why don't they do that? Well, teams don't have that. Every run should have a play action. Every run design has a play action. So for the defense, no, it's a pass. I think that's what they need to get more to and get Lamar under center a little bit to separate the defense, to create some seams in the defense that are not there when you're just always in shotgun running counter OB or counter OY and all those things that they try to run.
A division I think could be pretty competitive, plus 240 in that, 9.5 their season win total, and their Super Bowl odds actually shorter than they were a year ago at this time. They were 20-1 preseason last year, 18-1 right now. Let's go to those Carolina Panthers. See, I knew that we would get there soon because of the whole alphabet thing I'm talking about here. Frank Reich told reporters this week Bryce Young has ascended to the top quarterback on the depth chart over Andy Dalton and Matt Corral. I mean, we knew that, obviously, being the number one pick out of Alabama. It was just a question of when. The when is now. How quickly, though, can Bryce Young really be one of those legitimate quarterbacks in the NFL?
Well, I think the offense is going to carry him a little bit. It comes down to his decision-making, his ability to process quickly, and that's something he did very well at Alabama. They're going to rely on their offensive line, the James Campen run game that was so successful, Miles Sanders as the back this year, along with Chuba Hubbard. But to me, I think he can make an impact right away. And he's got to just play within himself. And that's what Bryce Young does really well. He plays within himself. And so he's going to lead this team. He's going to give them a sense of toughness. We talk about Jimmy Butler bringing that competitiveness to his team. Well, I think Bryce Young does this in a different way, in a kind of a quiet but demanding way. Not like Mariota, who doesn't really have that vibe to him. Mariota's more of a follower than he is a leader. Bryce Young is a true type A alpha. He's going to lead this team, and I think it's going to benefit the Panthers.
And I know it's talking season and everybody's glowing and wonderful, but all the reports that I have seen out of Panthers camp have been saying how coaches, players, everybody's been very endeared by Bryce Young to this point, soaking up everything like a sponge, whether it's Josh McCown or Frank Reich or even Steve Smith, who's been around a lot, asking him questions and trying to get perspective. How big of a factor is it this last 30 seconds, just the coaches that you have around him? Because you do have a head coach that's a former quarterback, understands you, McCown, Jim Caldwell, who had experience with Peyton Manning, of course, like all these guys around him to support him too.
I think that's important because, that you can go to get answers, right? Hey, Peyton struggled with this. And, when I was a young player, Jim Kelly struggled with this. And then when we had Jalen Hurts and, or we did this with Justin Herbert in San Diego when I was there with the Chargers before we moved to Los Angeles. I think all that, players want to be able to connect what they're learning to a player that learned it before.
Pritch, last segment, Michael and I were going through some of the teams that are starting mandatory minicamp. A number of them got underway last week as well, and burning questions for each team. I know you play particularly close attention to the local team here in Vegas,
Right.
the Vegas Raiders. What's your burning question for Vegas going into 2023?
Quarterback.
No, just
Yes,
kidding.
yes.
Just
I mean,
kidding.
I know. How about that? Even with Josh Jacobs and the potential holdout that the Raiders could face with that too, right? I think defensively, this Raiders team has a chance to be better. I think in offseason, some of the drafted players that they acquired, certainly some of the free agents as well, and the scheme. Another year with Coach Graham, familiarity, all of that kind of comes into place with what the Raiders can do defensively. Now, the question mark is offensively. I mean, I think with Derek Carr, a number of years, maybe you knew what the Raiders were going to be about. I think they surprised people last year, at least Derek Carr and Devontae Adams did. And then here comes Josh Jacobs, like I mentioned before. So can they build on that? They get the Josh Jacobs situation settled, but is the quarterback position, in that foot, is that going to be settled? And is that going to be something that you can rely on for 17 games? That to me is the biggest burning question right now for the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, look, if Garoppolo and all indications are he's good, they had their mini camp last week, but, they are. I do think you hit the nail on the head earlier in this when you said that they're better. I think they'll be better on defense. You cannot get, in terms of their talent level defensively, any worse.
Right.
All right, I'm going to hit you with another one. How about the Dallas Cowboys? Burning questions for the Cowboys.
Sense of urgency, right? I think it's a 3-team race, as we know. Dallas, 49ers, and the Eagles, although I have another team I'm going to throw in the mix here in a minute. But, yeah, it's sense of urgency. McCarthy, is this going to be his final year? I think he's coaching as if it could be a make-or-break situation. How many years do you want to give Dak Prescott? How many years do you want to give this situation? I think they're loaded defensively on the top end, all 22 for the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, that's the Super Bowl caliber roster. But can they be consistent enough? I think they can. I mean, Dak Prescott, for his entire career, has averaged double-digit wins pretty much. So you can count on the Cowboys to be in the playoffs. It's just, can they get through the playoffs? And to me, the burning question is this, mini camp, the offseason, everything leading into training camp. Can they get to a point where they understand how to get through the playoffs and not just reach the playoffs this year?
I agree. I mean, but, to me, I love the Cowboys on paper. I just worry, can they get it all together? That's what I worry about. Can it, whenever they have home field advantage, it doesn't work out. And whenever you think they have a chance to upset a team, there's something missing, Mike. I just can't put my finger on it. Well, I actually can. I think it's their culture, but that's a whole other story.
I was just going to say, do the Cowboys really want to run more? Because that's been what we keep hearing, right? And is Zeke going to come back? Who knows? So many questions about the Cowboys, I feel like.
Burning questions.
Burning questions.
What was the other team that you were going to talk about in the NFC East, Mike?
Well, the NFC in particular, the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, for so long, I've been thinking it's a 3-team race. But, haven't played up there, and I get privy to information up there too, and it's like, they are very excited about this roster, and rightly so, right? I mean, I think Geno, the consistency that he established last year, if he can build on that with the weapons he has around him, Smith and Jigba has been outstanding so far. They're going to run the football. They're going to be physical. They're going to be tough. They got depth on the offensive line and the defensive line, and then they could be dynamic in the back end too defensively. So there's a lot of excitement going on with the Seattle Seahawks, so I'm starting to gravitate towards that excitement and include them into the race in the NFC.
What are your thoughts on those rookies, Devin Witherspoon and Jackson Smith and Jigba, and their progress? Because I saw they were, somewhat limited during rookie minicamp and OTAs. Witherspoon, I believe, is still yet to sign that rookie contract. Any early thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I think my initial thoughts is Witherspoon from the Big Ten. I mean, I don't know if they're anticipating him to be a shutdown corner, but I think he's a complement to what they want to do. Certainly what Pete Carroll's all about. And then Smith and Jigba, they just give Geno Smith and that offense another weapon. He's going to be good to go. He's got to stay healthy, like you mentioned, and we know about his injury issues at Ohio State. But with DK and Lockett and that running game and the tight end position, there's a lot that they can do with that offense, something that they haven't done before, I believe. And then on top of that, they don't have a quarterback ego to worry about either. They don't have that Russell ego to worry about.
Yeah, I like Seattle, Mike. I agree with you. I think they're better. Look, they made giant steps last year. I think they had a great draft, they got a 3 technique in Jones. I like this team. I do. I think they're going to go over their win total.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.